Today I'm going to be reading this book. This is part 3. And if you've been following the series for 2 days, you know what's up. Okay, so we're reading to page 90 today. So let's start. They probably should have done a better job researching some of the stations they visited, though, because it would have saved them a lot of time driving around. It shows a spiritual talk radio. I don't want to show the picture, though, because I should have said that before, but Logic said the problem wasn't that their song was bad, it was that the people who chose what to put on the radio have terrible taste in music. So he decided if they wanted to get their music heard, they were just going to have to get creative. Logic said there were a lot of places that play songs besides radio stations, so they made a list of everywhere they've ever heard music in public. Gas station, sports arena, grocery store, mall, elevator, fast food, restaurant, electronics store, dentist's office. The guys spent a few days working on the phones trying to track down the people who made the decisions of these kind of things, but they just had a bunch of dead ends, so they drove around town to try and find the right people to talk to. But that didn't get them anywhere either. After that, they started talking to people they actually knew, but nobody was willing to play their song. Then they had a breakthrough. Drew's older brother worked at the deli's counter at the grocery store, and he had access to the sound system in the back office. So the guys finally got to hear their music in public for the first time. But the song only played for about 30 seconds before the deli manager shut it off. And I guess he wasn't a fan of that kind of music because he fired Drew's brother before his shift was even over. The guys were pretty frustrated they couldn't get anyone to play their song, but then Bill said maybe they needed to take a different approach. He said TV commercials usually have music in them, and maybe they could convince some company to use Loaded Diapers and music for one of their ads. Fresh Group's Katie Litter. Can you smell us now? Bill said if they were lucky, they might even get their pictures on some packaging, but Roderick said that once that started going down the road, it was the beginning of the end for them. And I bet if Bill could get some face on his packaging, But if Bill could get... But I bet if Bill could get his face on some packaging, he'd jump at the chance. Tuesday. Last week, Loaded Diaper finally caught a lucky break when Logic went down to the junkyard to see if he could find some doors to replace the ones on his van. He found a replacement vehicle. Somebody had abandoned an old ice cream truck in the junkyard, and the guy who owned the place told Logic he could have it for free if he could get it off the lot. And even though the truck was rusted, it still ran. The guys were excited because there was plenty of room inside the truck for their band equipment, and this means they could actually start doing shows again. But the thing they were most excited about was the speaker on top of the vehicle. And when Logic brought the truck home, the guys spent the weekend around town blasting their music. After they got tired of that, they started calling different clubs to find someone who would hire them to do a show. But it's been a long time since Loaded Diaper actually played anywhere, and none of the places they called had even heard of them. So Logic and the guys have been trying to think of ways to get themselves noticed. The other night, they drove around playing their music from the roof of their ice cream truck, but they didn't get past the elementary school which recently installed speed bumps in the drop-off zone. Logic said that if Loaded Diaper really wanted to make a splash, they were going to have to start thinking a lot bigger. He said that when that was starting out, they played a concert from the rooftop of a building in the middle of the city, and it caused a huge scene. The police and fire department shut them down. By the time they did, that was already all over the news. The band got fired for disturbing the peace, and even spent the night in jail. They used their mugshots on the cover of their first album. Logic's big idea was to do a show from the top of the same building they had played on 30 years ago. Mackie wasn't crazy about the idea, though, because he said getting arrested wouldn't look good on his college applications. But Logic said that the minute they saw the police coming, they'd take off, and I guess Mackie wanted to be a team player because he agreed to go along with it. So this afternoon, the guys packed up the ice cream truck with all their equipment and drove downtown. Their plan was to use the elevator to get on the roof, but security's gotten a lot tighter since the rooftop concert, so Roderick and his bandmates didn't even pass the lobby. The guys weren't ready to give up, though, so they parked in an alleyway and waited by a side door until someone came out. They started making their way up the stairwell with their equipment, but that turned out to be a lot harder than they thought it would be. Bill wanted to turn around to find a building that didn't have so many floors, but Roger said they were already committed and they just needed to keep going. After taking lots of breaks between floors, they finally got up on the rooftop. They set up all their equipment, but they couldn't find any electrical outlets for their speakers and guitars. So Roger tried to get the lady who lived in the apartment one floor below to let them use her outlet. The guys thought the lady was going to call the cops, and they all got spooked. So they gathered up their gear and went back to the stairwell. It should have been easier getting down than coming up, but they were in a rush, so the getaway didn't go smoothly. As soon as the guys made it back to the alley with all their gear, they started loading it into that ice cream truck. That's when a police cruiser drove up and blocked them in. The guys started freaking out because they thought they were about to get arrested for trespassing. But it turns out the cop didn't even know they'd been on the roof. The police officer told them they were parked in a loading zone, which comes with a $50 fine. But I guess she felt sorry for them because she let them off with just a warning. And even though Loaded Diaper didn't get the publicity they were hoping for, they were already talking about their run-in with the law on their first album cover. Sunday. The rooftop concert didn't go the way they planned, but the guys started dreaming up new stunts to call attention to themselves, and all their ideas were pretty crazy. Bill's idea was to drop a 1,000-pound diaper from the top of a skyscraper, but nobody knew where they could get a diaper that big, and none of them wanted to climb all them stairs again anyway. Drew said maybe they could do the same thing with a regular-sized diaper from a lower floor, but the other guys agreed that wouldn't have the same effect. Then Roger came up with a plan that was really nuts. He said that if they put diapers on all the statues in the city park in the middle of the night, people would want to know who was responsible. And then when Loaded Diaper announced they were the ones behind the stunt, they'd be famous. So they bought 3 dozen diapers and drove down to the city, but I guess the park has someone watching it 24 hours a day, and they got busted. After that, none of the guys had the stomach for another big stunt, so they decided to play it safe and just get some stickers made with the band's name on it. Today, the guys spread out and put the stickers all over town, and they must have burned through half their supply in public bathrooms alone. After they were done, Roger called up a few of the clubs that said they'd never heard of them to see if they knew who they were now, and the owner of Engaged Rock Club told them he knew exactly who Loaded Diaper was, and they should come downtown for a meeting. So the guys were pretty excited, because Renegades is one of the best places for live music, but it turns out they had stickered the owner's SUV, so they spent the rest of the afternoon scraping him off his vehicle. January. Saturday. I guess those stickers weren't a waste of money after all. The club next door to Renegades is called the Headless Chicken, and the other day the owner reached out to Roger to invite the band downtown to talk about playing a show. She said the Headless Chicken has live music every Thursday night, and if Loaded Diaper wanted to play there, she'd give them half the admission she charged at the door. The guys couldn't believe they actually lined up a paying gig, and they'd spent all the week getting ready for the show. Since they were going to be playing on an actual stage, they wanted to make sure their setup looked really cool. So Mackie made a giant Loaded Diaper banner to hang behind the band, and Roger got a fog machine from the Halloween store. Bill wanted to get one of those laser projectors to really put things over the top, but Drew's convinced those things were dangerous, so they had to scrap that idea. Roger wanted to make his drum set look extra cool for the show, so he came up with the idea of putting skulls on the tops of his cymbals. I thought he was going to pick a few plastic skulls at the Halloween store, but he was only interested in the real thing, and I guess people aren't just handing those things out to anyone who asks. Wojcik said the show isn't about the music, it's about the whole experience. He said they could turn the fog machine into a smell machine and have a different odor for each song. But when Mom found about that idea, she shut it down because she said it was unsanitary. The guys had a lot of other plans for those stage sets, but most of them were too expensive and just unrealistic. But then Bill came up with an idea that seemed like it might actually work. He said they could buy one of those plastic porta potties, and when it was time for the band to go out on stage, they'd all come out of it for their big entrance. So they started calling around to find a place that sold porta potties and found out those things cost a lot of money when they're brand new. Drew's uncle ran a construction site, and he was willing to sell the band a used porta potty at half price, so the guys went to pick it up today. But I guess loading that thing into the truck took a lot out of them, and now they're worried about getting the porta potty and all the equipment on stage Thursday night and still having enough energy to perform. So the band has been trying to find someone who can help move the equipment in and out of the truck on Thursday night. Wojcik asked his friend Ward first, because he used to work security for the band at the shows, but Ward wasn't willing to help out unless they made him a full member of the band. Then Drew asked his brother if he'd do it, but since he was still sore over getting fired from his job at the deli counter, he said he'd only take the gig if they paid him the money he would have got at work. I guess the guys were out of options, which is why they came to me. Wojcik said they couldn't... I'm dying over here. Wojcik said they couldn't pay me anything, but the experience would look great on my resume. I didn't know what kind of employer would be impressed that I worked for a band with the word diaper in its name, though. But I figured taking the job would make my loaded diaper telebook a lot more interesting. So really, I'm just in this for the dirt. Saturday. If every night is like Thursday night, I'm not sure how long I can survive being loaded diapers ready. The band wasn't supposed to go on stage at the Headless Chicken until 8, but Wojcik was pretty anxious to get everything set up, so he got there 2 hours ahead of time and started hauling the gear inside, and the band was happy to let the new guy do most of the grunt work. It took over an hour to set up, and the guys wanted to squeeze in some rehearsal time before the crowd started arriving. Come back for part 4. Bye.